You can postpone it, right? It's just a wedding. That's what my mother said to me 3 weeks before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. Not suggested, not asked, told. Because apparently, my little sister's graduation trip to Hawaii, a vacation she'd been planning for 2 months, was more important than the wedding I'd been planning for 18. We already booked the resort, my father added, not even looking up from his phone. Non-refundable. I stood there in their living room, my venue contract in one hand and my phone in the other, trying to understand how the people who raised me could say something like that with a straight face. But deep down, I already knew, because this wasn't new. This was just the first time they'd said the quiet part out loud.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
My name is Claire Donovan, and for most of my life, I was the responsible one. Not the fun one, not the celebrated one, just steady, reliable. The daughter who didn't need reminding, didn't need supervising, didn't need much of anything, really, which is convenient when you have a sister like mine. Natalie was 3 years younger and somehow always the center of gravity in our family. She was spontaneous, charming, effortlessly magnetic, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone forget what they were talking about. My parents adored that about her. They loved her energy, her stories, her last-minute plans that always seemed to work out. I got good grades. Natalie got standing ovations. I worked 2 jobs through college. Natalie studied abroad in Paris on my parents' dime. I planned ahead. Natalie lived in the moment, and somehow her way was always treated like it mattered more. I met my fiancé, Eric Callahan, during my second year of grad school. He was kind, steady, supportive, everything I didn't realize I was missing. He saw me, not as someone's sister, not as the quiet one in the background, but as me. When he proposed on a hiking trail at sunrise, I cried for 20 minutes straight, not because it was grand or Instagram perfect, but because for the first time in my life, someone had chosen me first. We set the date a year in advance, June 14th, a Saturday. Outdoor ceremony at a vineyard 2 hours north, reception under string lights, small but meaningful, 75 guests. I sent save the dates 10 months early. I confirmed with my parents 4 times. They said they'd be there. They even helped me pick the color scheme, dusty blue and ivory. Natalie graduated from college that May. Business degree, honors, the whole thing. My parents threw her a party. I brought a gift. I congratulated her. I was happy for her, genuinely. She deserved to celebrate. But then she started talking about a trip. Her and 5 friends, a week in Maui, snorkeling, beach clubs, luau's. She'd seen it on TikTok and decided she had to go. The problem, the only week that worked for everyone, was the second week of June. "That's the week of my wedding," I said carefully when she brought it up on Sunday dinner. Natalie waved her hand. "Oh, I know, but we'll be back by Friday. Your wedding Saturday, right? Plenty of time." I felt the knot forming in my stomach, but I nodded. "Yeah, Saturday." My mother smiled. "See, it'll be fine." Except it wasn't fine. 2 weeks later, Natalie called me, voice bright and breezy. "So, bad news. The flights got crazy expensive. We found a better deal if we fly back Sunday instead of Friday. I'll miss the wedding, but it's literally saving me $600. You understand, right?" I didn't respond immediately. I was standing in my apartment, halfway through addressing invitations by hand, my fingers cramped from writing names in gold ink. "Claire, you're missing my wedding to save money on a vacation you didn't have to take? Don't be dramatic. It's just one day. You'll have like a million other family events. This is my one post-grad trip." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that she'd had a dozen trips, a dozen celebrations, a dozen moments where everyone dropped everything to show up for her. But instead, I said, okay, because that's what I always did. But then my parents got involved. It started with my mom calling,
her tone careful, like she was delivering bad news she'd rehearsed. Honey, your dad and I have been talking. Natalie really wants us to come to Hawaii with her, just for a few days. She's been stressed about post-grad life, and we thought it'd be good to spend some family time together before she starts job hunting. I gripped the phone tighter. Mom, my wedding is in 3 weeks. I know, sweetheart, but here's the thing. The resort has this amazing deal, and it's only available that exact week. We'd fly out Wednesday, be back Saturday morning. We'd make it to your wedding. We just might be a little tired. A little tired? At my wedding? After spending 4 days in Hawaii with my sister? You're seriously choosing a vacation over my wedding? We're not choosing, Claire. We're doing both. It's called multitasking. That's when I should have known. That's when I should have seen it coming. But I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I told myself they'd make it work, that they'd keep their word. I was wrong. The call came on a Tuesday, 11 days before the wedding. I was at the florist finalizing bouquet arrangements when my phone buzzed. It was my father. Claire, we need to talk. I stepped outside into the parking lot, the sun beating down on the asphalt. What's wrong? The flights got moved. There was a schedule change with the airline. Now we don't land until Saturday evening. We're not going to make the ceremony. I felt the air leave my lungs. You're joking. We're not happy about it either, but it's out of our hands. You know how airlines are. Then change your flight. Come home early. Cancel the trip. Silence. Dad? He sighed. The resort's non-refundable, Claire. We've already paid for everything. It's thousands of dollars. And honestly, Natalie really needs this right now. She's going through a lot. I'm getting married. We know, and we're so proud of you. But weddings happen all the time. This trip is a once-in-a-lifetime thing for your sister. I hung up. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't throw my phone across the parking lot. I just stood there, staring at the florist shop window, watching the florist inside rearrange white roses like nothing in the world had just crumbled. That night, my mother texted me, "Don't be upset. We'll see the photos. And honestly, the ceremony's the boring part anyway. You'll have fun at the reception." That's when I realized they weren't coming. Not because they couldn't, because they didn't think it mattered. And for the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for them to prove me wrong. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I told Eric that night. We were sitting on our apartment balcony, the city lights stretched out below us, and I just said it plainly. They're not coming. He set down his beer. What do you mean they're not coming? My parents, Natalie, none of them. They're choosing Hawaii over the wedding. I watched his face shift from confusion to disbelief to something that looked like anger, which was rare for him. Eric didn't get angry. He got quiet, thoughtful. But right then, his jaw tightened. They told you this 11 days before our wedding? Flight got rescheduled, I said, my voice flat. Non-refundable resort. Natalie needs family time. Pick your excuse. He stood up, paced to the railing, came back. That's insane, Claire. Do they realize what they're saying? Do they understand what they're doing to you? I looked at my hands. I think they do. I just don't think they care. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands in his. Then we postpone. We pick a new date. We make sure they can be there. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just cleanly. No. Eric blinked. No? I'm not postponing my wedding so they can fit me into their schedule. I'm not rearranging my life again to make space for people who won't make space for me. Claire, I've done it my whole life, Eric. I've moved, I've adjusted, I've waited. I'm done waiting. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, then what do you want to do? I didn't have an answer yet. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to beg them to show up. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of knowing how much this hurt. Because if I did, they'd just do what they always did. Minimize it, rationalize it, make me feel like I was overreacting. So instead, I did nothing. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't send a guilt trip or an emotional plea. I just kept planning the wedding like they'd never been invited in the first place. The calls started 2 days later. First, my mom. Claire, honey, I know you're upset, but you're not responding to any of my messages. Can we at least talk about this like adults? I let it go to voicemail. Then my dad. Your mother's worried about you. You're being childish. We said we'd see the photos. What more do you want? Delete. Then, surprisingly, Natalie. Her message was a voice note, bubbly and casual like we were talking about brunch plans. Hey, so Mom's freaking out saying you're ignoring everyone. Look, I get you're disappointed, but it's not like we're doing this to you. The trip just landed on the same week. Bad timing. You'll have an amazing day anyway. Eric's family will be there, right? Send me pics. I played it twice. Not because I was considering responding, but because I needed to hear it again to believe it. She genuinely didn't see the problem. To her, this was just bad luck, an unfortunate overlap. Not a choice, not a priority, just logistics. I deleted that one too. Eric's mother, Patricia, called me the next day. She'd somehow heard, I suspect Eric told her, and her voice was tight with controlled fury. Claire, sweetheart, I don't mean to overstep, but I need you to know that if your family doesn't show up to this wedding, they are making the biggest mistake of their lives, and you are not responsible for fixing it. I felt my throat tighten. I don't know what to do. You do what you've already been doing. You show up for yourself. You marry that wonderful man, and you let them live with their choice. It was the permission I didn't know I needed. Patricia wasn't family by blood, but in that moment, she was more of a mother than mine had been in years. The next few days were strange. I moved through wedding tasks on autopilot, confirmed the caterer, finalized seating charts, picked up my dress from alterations. But every time I crossed off a task, I felt the gap where my family should have been. I'd imagined my father walking me down the aisle. I'd imagined my mother tearing up during the vows. I'd imagined Natalie standing beside me, fixing my veil and making a toast that was half embarrassing and half sweet. None of that was going to happen now.
Eric suggested his father walk me down the aisle. I considered it, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want a stand-in. I didn't want someone else playing the role my father refused to fill. So I made a different choice. I'd walk myself. When I told Eric, he looked at me like I'd just said something revolutionary. You're sure? I'm sure. I don't need someone to give me away. I'm not property. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. I'll walk myself. He kissed my forehead. You're the strongest person I know. I didn't feel strong. I felt hollowed out, but I also felt something else. Clarity. Because for the first time, I saw the pattern clearly. It wasn't just this wedding. It was everything. When I graduated high school with honors, my parents missed the ceremony because Natalie had a dance recital the same night. You'll have college graduation, they said. When I got my master's degree, they showed up late because they'd been helping Natalie move into her dorm. When I got my first real job, the kind with benefits and a title, my mother's response was, "That's wonderful, honey," and then immediately pivoted to asking if I could lend Natalie money for spring break. Every milestone I hit was met with lukewarm praise and a pivot to my sister. Every achievement was wonderful, but never wonderful enough to hold their attention. And I'd accepted it. I'd told myself it was fine, that I didn't need the attention, that I was independent, self-sufficient, different. But the truth was simpler and uglier. They just didn't think I was worth showing up for. And now they'd said it outright. A vacation. A vacation mattered more than my wedding. I sat in my car outside the venue one afternoon, staring at the vineyard where I'd be married in 6 days.
The coordinator had texted asking for a final head count. I opened my phone and scrolled to the family group chat. My parents, Natalie, my aunt and uncle, who'd already confirmed they were coming. I typed, "Final headcount confirmed." Looking forward to celebrating with everyone who prioritized being there. I didn't tag anyone, didn't specify, just sent it. Natalie responded within minutes. "Wow, passive-aggressive much?" My mother, "Claire, this is unnecessary." I turned my phone face down and drove home. That night, Eric asked me if I was okay. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm not okay, but I will be, because I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to let their absence ruin my wedding. I wasn't going to spend the day wondering if they'd change their minds, if they'd show up last minute, if they'd realize what they'd done. I was going to get married. I was going to celebrate, and I was going to do it without them. What I didn't know yet was that their absence wouldn't just leave a hole. It would create space for something else. Something they weren't expecting. And when they finally realized what they'd lost, it would be far too late to get it back.
3 days before the wedding, I got a package. It arrived at my office, plain brown box, no return address. Inside was a photo album. Old, leather-bound, the kind with those sticky plastic pages that yellow at the edges. A note was tucked inside the front cover, written in handwriting I recognized immediately. "Claire, thought you might want this for your big day. Found it in the attic. Grandma Rose." My grandmother. My father's mother. The one person in my family who'd always been different. She lived 4 states away in a retirement community in Arizona, too far to travel for the wedding. But she'd sent a generous check and a card that made me cry. The card had said, "Some people are born into the wrong family. You were born into the wrong mindset. Break free, sweetheart." I flipped through the album slowly. Photos from my childhood. Me at age 6, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a spelling bee trophy. Me at 10, covered in paint at an art show. Me at 13, awkward and braced, receiving an award for a science project. Page after page of moments I'd forgotten. And in every single one, I was alone. Not physically alone. There were people in the backgrounds, other kids, teachers, random parents. But my family? Nowhere. Not one photo had my mother or father standing beside me. Not one showed Natalie cheering from the audience. The last page had a photo I didn't recognize. It was me at my high school graduation, cap and gown, standing on the lawn outside the auditorium. I was smiling, but my eyes looked tired. Behind me, blurred but visible, was my family. They were walking toward the parking lot. I was facing the camera. They were leaving. Grandma Rose had written in the margin, "Taken by a friend of mine who attended. I asked her to get a shot of you. I'm sorry I wasn't there myself. But I see you, Claire. I've always seen you." I closed the album and sat there in my office, staring at nothing. Eric found me like that an hour later. He'd come to pick me up for our final venue walkthrough. One look at my face, and he knew something had shifted. "What happened?" I handed him the album without a word. He flipped through it slowly, his expression darkening with each page. When he reached the graduation photo, he stopped. "Claire, I didn't imagine it," I said quietly. "I spent years thinking maybe I was too sensitive, maybe I was remembering wrong, but I wasn't. They really just weren't there." Eric closed the album and set it down gently. "You don't owe them anything." "I know." "I mean it. You don't owe them space at this wedding. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them a relationship after this." I looked up at him. "You think I should cut them off?" "I think you should do whatever makes you feel whole. And if that means moving forward without them, I'll support that. If that means giving them another chance someday, I'll support that too. But right now, Right now, they don't deserve access to you. That night, I made a list. Not a revenge list, not a script, just a list of facts. Things I'd done for my family over the years that had gone unreciprocated. I'd co-signed Natalie's first apartment lease when my parents wouldn't because her credit was bad. I'd loaned her $3,000 for a car repair she never paid back. I'd covered her portion of a family vacation rental when she forgot her wallet. I'd designed her graduation announcements for free, spent 2 weeks on them, printed them myself. I'd helped my parents move twice. I'd painted their living room. I dog sat for them 6 times, including once when they went to Cancun for their anniversary and didn't even bring me a souvenir. I'd shown up over and over and over again, and they'd taken it as a given. But I'd never asked for anything in return, never demanded they show up for me the way I showed up for them. I just assumed that love worked both ways, that investment was reciprocal, that family meant mutual effort. I'd been wrong. The day before the wedding, I went to the venue alone. The coordinator had offered to meet me, but I told her I just wanted to walk the space, to see it one more time before everything started. She gave me the code to the gate and told me to take all the time I needed. The vineyard was beautiful. Rolling hills, rows of grapevines stretching toward the horizon, the ceremony site positioned under a massive oak tree strung with lights. The reception area was an open-air pavilion with wooden tables, white linens, and mason jars waiting to be filled with wildflowers. I stood at the end of the aisle, looking toward the altar. Tomorrow, I'd walk this path, alone. No father's arm to hold, no mother crying in the front row, no sister adjusting my train. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because I didn't have to perform for them. Didn't have to worry if they approved of my vows, my dress, my choice of music. Didn't have to watch them compare this wedding to some imaginary standard or make it about Natalie somehow. This wedding was mine and Eric's, and no one could take that from us. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. My family had been posting all week from Hawaii. Natalie parasailing, my parents at a luau, cocktails on the beach, sunset photos with captions like, "Living our best lives," and "Paradise found." Not one mention of a wedding. Not one acknowledgement that they were missing anything. I scrolled to my own profile. I'd barely posted in months. I wasn't an influencer, didn't have a huge following, just friends and acquaintances. But I'd been thinking about something all week. I opened a new post, selected a photo from my phone, the one Grandma Rose had sent, me at graduation, alone. I typed, "Tomorrow I marry my best friend. Some people won't be there, and that's taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned. You can't make people prioritize you, but you can prioritize yourself. See you at the altar, Eric. I'm ready." I hit post. Within 5 minutes, the comments started rolling in. Friends from college, coworkers, people I hadn't spoken to in years. "You deserve the world, Claire. Their loss. Can't wait to celebrate with you." And then, unexpectedly, from people I didn't know, friends of friends, strangers who'd seen the post shared. "This is so brave. I needed to hear this today. You're going to have a beautiful wedding." My phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. "Really, Claire? You're putting our business on social media now? Way to make everything about you." I stared at the message, read it 3 times. Then I blocked her number. I blocked my mother's number. I blocked my father's number. Tomorrow was my wedding day, and I was done letting them ruin it before it even started. That night, Eric and I had dinner with his parents. Patricia had insisted, said it was bad luck for us to see each other the night before, but good luck to share a meal with people who loved us. Over pasta and wine, Eric's father, Robert, raised his glass. "To Claire, the strongest woman I know. Tomorrow, you become part of our family officially, but you should know you've been family to us since the day Eric brought you home. We're honored to stand with you." I cried, right there at the table, in front of the breadbasket and the half-eaten tiramisu. Patricia reached over and squeezed my hand. You're not losing a family, sweetheart. You're gaining one that actually deserves you. I went to bed that night in the bridal suite at the Vineyards guest house. My bridesmaids, 3 college friends who'd flown in from different states, were in the rooms next door, already laughing and playing music. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and I made myself a promise. Tomorrow, I would not think about who wasn't there. I would only see who was. And I would remember that the people who show up are the only ones who matter. What I didn't know was that my family's absence was about to become the least of their problems. Because sometimes, when you stop needing someone's approval, you start seeing exactly how much they needed yours.
The morning of my wedding, I woke up to sunlight streaming through lace curtains and the sound of champagne bottles popping in the room next door. My bridesmaids crashed through my door minutes later. Jenna, my college roommate, Amber, my work friend who'd become family, and Riley, my cousin from my mother's side who'd called me the week before to say, I'm ashamed of them and I'm showing up for you. They came bearing mimosas, donuts, and a Bluetooth speaker already blasting music. Today is your day, Jenna announced, setting a champagne flute in my hand. We're not talking about who isn't here, we're celebrating who is. And that's exactly what we did. Hair and makeup took 3 hours. We laughed until our faces hurt. We told embarrassing stories, we took silly photos in our robes and face masks. At one point, Amber's phone rang, her boyfriend asking about directions, and Riley grabbed it and yelled, "No boys allowed! This is sacred feminine energy time!" For those 3 hours, I forgot about everything except this moment, these women, this joy. When they finally zipped me into my dress, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. The dress was simple but elegant. Lace sleeves, fitted bodice, flowing skirt that moved like water. My hair was swept up with small white flowers tucked into the curls. I wore my grandmother's pearl earrings, the one she'd mailed me with a note that said, "Wore these at my wedding, didn't need them at his." Even Grandma Rose was throwing shade from Arizona. Jenna's eyes filled with tears. "Claire, you're stunning." I turned, looking at myself from every angle, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Complete. Not because of the dress or the makeup or the perfect hair, but because I'd chosen this. Every part of it. The venue, the flowers, the vows I'd written myself. This wedding wasn't a performance, it was a promise, and I was ready to make it. The ceremony started at 4. I stood at the entrance to the vineyard, watching guests take their seats. 75 people. Friends, coworkers, Eric's extended family, a few neighbors, old professors. People who'd made the trip, bought gifts, taken time off work. People who'd chosen to be there. The music started, a string quartet playing an acoustic version of our song. My bridesmaids walked first, one by one, smiling at me as they passed. Then it was my turn. I stepped onto the white runner alone. No father's arm to hold, no one to give me away. Just me, walking toward the man I loved, choosing him, choosing us, choosing myself. I could feel every eye on me, but I only saw one person. Eric, standing at the altar in his navy suit, his eyes already red, his hand over his heart. When I reached him, he whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." I whispered back, "I walked myself." He grinned through tears. "That's what makes you unstoppable." The ceremony was perfect. Not because everything went according to plan. The flower girl dropped the basket halfway down the aisle, and the officiant accidentally called Eric Aaron during the vows, but because it was real. It was us. When Eric said, "I promise to always see you, even when you feel invisible," I had to bite my lip from sobbing. When I said, "I promise to never shrink myself to make room for people who don't make room for me," I saw Patricia wiping her eyes in the front row. We kissed. Everyone cheered, and as we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, I felt lighter than I had in years. The reception was everything I'd hoped for. Dinner under the stars, toasts that made people laugh and cry, dancing that lasted until my feet ached. Eric's father gave a speech about how he knew I was the one when Eric started smiling differently, like he'd found something he didn't know he was looking for. Riley gave a toast too, unplanned.
She stood up, slightly tipsy, and said, "To Claire, who taught me that the family you're born into doesn't have to be the family you keep. You deserve every bit of happiness you found." The applause was deafening. Around 9 o'clock, I stepped outside for air. The reception was still going strong, people dancing, laughing, the DJ playing something upbeat. I stood under the oak tree where we'd set our vows, looking up at the string lights, and I felt it. Peace. Then my phone buzzed. I'd turned it off during the ceremony, but I'd powered it back on to check messages from Grandma Rose, who'd promised to call after the I-dos. But the notification wasn't from her. It was an email from my mother. The subject line read, "We need to talk."
I almost deleted it, almost turned my phone back off and went inside to dance with my husband. But something made me open it. "Claire, we just landed back in the States. Natalie showed us your Instagram post. I can't believe you would publicly humiliate us like that. We have been nothing but supportive of you, and this is how you repay us? By airing family business online and making us look like terrible parents? Your father is furious. Natalie is heartbroken. You've ruined what was supposed to be a beautiful trip for her. We expect an apology. And we expect you to take that post down immediately. Regardless of how you're feeling right now, we are still your family. Act like it. Mom." I read it twice. Then I laughed. Not a bitter laugh, not a sad one, a genuine, bewildered, almost relieved laugh. Because they still didn't get it. They'd missed my wedding. They'd chosen a vacation over the most important day of my life. And somehow, in their minds, I was the one who'd done something wrong. I screenshotted the email. Then I walked back inside, found Eric spinning Jenna on the dance floor, and tapped his shoulder. "Can I steal my husband for a second?" He grinned. "You can steal me forever." We walked to the edge of the pavilion, and I showed him the email. His smile disappeared. "Are they serious?" "Completely. What do you want to do?" I looked back at the reception, at the people who'd shown up, at the life I was building, at the man who'd chosen me, fully and without condition. "Nothing," I said. "I'm not responding. I'm not apologizing. I'm not taking the post down. I'm just done." Eric pulled me close. "I love you. I love you too." We danced until midnight. We cut the cake, we sent our guests home with full hearts and doggy bags of leftovers, and when we finally collapsed into bed in the honeymoon suite, exhausted and happy, I didn't think about my family once, but they were thinking about me. Because while I was celebrating the best day of my life, they were beginning to realize that their absence hadn't just hurt me. It had cost them something they'd never get back. And the consequences were just beginning. Eric and I spent our honeymoon in a cabin in Vermont. No phone service, no internet, just us, a fireplace, hiking trails, and absolute silence from the world. It was exactly what I needed. We cooked breakfast together, read books on the porch, talked about our future without anyone else's voice in our heads. For one perfect week, my family didn't exist. The hurt didn't exist. There was only this marriage, this peace, this choice I'd made to put myself first. On our last day there, we drove into town for supplies. I turned my phone back on in the parking lot of a small grocery store just to let Patricia know we'd be home the next day. 73 notifications. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, Instagram comments, Facebook tags. My phone vibrated continuously for 30 seconds straight. Eric looked over from the driver's seat. "What's happening?" I scrolled through the chaos, my heart rate climbing. I don't know. Most of the messages were from people I barely knew. Friends of friends, distant relatives, former classmates, but they all said similar things. "Saw what happened. I'm so sorry. Your family is all over Facebook trying to control the narrative. You need to see what Natalie posted." I opened Instagram first. My post, the one from the night before the wedding, had exploded. What started with a few hundred likes now had over 15,000.
It had been shared to wedding shaming groups, family estrangement support pages, even a popular relationship advice account with millions of followers. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, but sprinkled throughout were ones from people I recognized. My aunt, my mother's college friend, Natalie's sorority sisters. There are two sides to every story. Claire always played the victim. Some context, her sister just graduated and deserved a celebration too. Then I found Natalie's post. She'd uploaded a photo of herself in Hawaii, sun-kissed and smiling, with a lengthy caption. I'm seeing a lot of hate directed at my family right now, and I need to set the record straight. My sister Claire is upset that we couldn't make her wedding because of a scheduling conflict. But what she's not telling you is that we offered to help her reschedule. We wanted to be there. She refused to compromise and then posted online to make us look like villains. Family conflict is normal. Publicly shaming your parents and sister isn't. I love Claire, but this has gone too far. Hashtag family first. Hashtag two sides to every story. The post had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments supporting her. I felt Eric's hand on my shoulder. Claire, they're lying, I said quietly. They never offered to help me reschedule. They told me to postpone so I wouldn't inconvenience them. I know. They're rewriting what happened. I know. I kept scrolling. Found my mother's Facebook post, more measured but equally manipulative. It breaks my heart to see family issues played out publicly. We love both our daughters deeply. Sometimes life presents impossible choices. We're praying for healing and forgiveness. Praying for forgiveness. As if I was the one who needed to ask for it. But then I saw something else. Comments from people who knew better. Riley had responded directly to Natalie's post. I was at the wedding. It was beautiful, and you weren't there by choice. Own it. My father's own sister, Aunt Diane, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, had commented on my mother's post. Linda, you told me 3 weeks ago you weren't going because Claire's wedding would be small anyway. Don't rewrite history. A former neighbor. I remember when Claire graduated valedictorian and you missed it for Natalie's dance thing. This isn't new. The truth was leaking out, not from me, from everyone else who'd watched this family dynamic play out for years. I closed my phone and looked at Eric. This is getting bigger than I wanted. Do you want to respond? I thought about it. The old Claire would have written a detailed explanation, defended herself, provided evidence, but that version of me was exhausting. She spent her whole life explaining herself to people who'd already made up their minds. No, I said finally. The truth is already out there. People who know them, really know them, are seeing it. That's enough. We drove back to the cabin in silence. That night, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize.
Against my better judgment, I answered. Claire? A woman's voice, older, uncertain. This is Helen Bradford. I don't know if you remember me. I sat up straighter. Helen Bradford, my mother's best friend from book club. I'd known her my entire childhood. Mrs. Bradford, hi. I saw everything online, and I need you to know something. She paused. Your mother called me 2 days ago. She's organizing people, telling them what to say, how to comment. She sent a group text with talking points. Scheduling conflict. Offered to reschedule. Claire's being dramatic. My stomach dropped. She's coordinating this? She's trying to control the story. But Claire, honey, I've watched your mother do this your whole life, and I'm done staying quiet. Her voice cracked. I should have said something years ago. The way they treated you, it wasn't right. It was never right. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know you're not crazy. You're not making it up. And there are people who see exactly what's happening. After we hung up, I showed Eric the call log. "They're not just defending themselves," I said. "They're actively campaigning against me." "Which means they're scared," Eric said. "People who are confident in their choices don't need to recruit an army." He was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. Over the next 2 days, more people reached out. My high school guidance counselor, who remembered my parents missing my college acceptance celebration. A former coworker of my dad's who'd witnessed him dismiss my accomplishments at a company picnic. Even Natalie's ex-boyfriend, who sent a message saying, "I saw how they treated you. I tried to tell Nat once. She didn't want to hear it." The narrative my family was trying to build was crumbling, not because I was fighting it, but because the foundation was rotten. Then, 3 days after we got home from our honeymoon, I received a certified letter. My hand shook as I opened it. It was from a lawyer, but not one representing my family. It was from my grandmother's estate attorney. "Dear Mrs. Callahan, your grandmother, Rose Donovan, has updated her will and requested I inform you of recent changes. Effective immediately, you have been named primary beneficiary of her estate, including property, financial assets, and family heirlooms. Previous beneficiaries, your father, Thomas Donovan, have been removed. Mrs. Donovan wanted you to know this decision was made after reviewing recent family events. She asked me to include a personal note." Attached was a handwritten letter on Grandma Rose's floral stationery. "Claire, I'm 84 years old. I don't have time for nonsense anymore. Your father called me yesterday furious about what you did to the family. I asked him what he did to you. He hung up. I've watched him treat you like an afterthought your entire life, and I won't let him profit from it after I'm gone. Everything I have is yours. You've earned it by being yourself despite them, not because of them. Use it well, live boldly, and don't you dare invite them to spend it. Love, Grandma." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Not sad tears, not angry tears. Relief. Because for the first time, someone with power in my family had taken a stand, had said out loud, with legal documentation, "This is wrong." And my family had no idea it was coming, but they were about to find out.
My father found out about the will on a Tuesday. I know because Grandma Rose called me herself, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "He showed up at my door," she wheezed. "Drove 18 hours straight from wherever he was. Didn't call ahead, just pounded on my door at 7 in the morning, demanding to know if it was true." I put her on speaker so Eric could hear. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "I told him, yes, it's true. I told him he raised one daughter to be kind and one to be entitled, and he chose to celebrate the wrong one. Then I told him to get off my porch before I called security." Eric nearly spit out his coffee. "Grandma! Don't you grandma me. I'm old, not dead, and I'm certainly not senile enough to give my money to a man who couldn't bother to show up for his own daughter's wedding." She paused. "He tried to tell me you manipulated me. Said you've been poisoning me against the family." "That's not—" "I know it's not. I told him I haven't seen you in 3 years because I live in a retirement community 4 states away, and the only person who calls me regularly is you, every Sunday, like clockwork. You think your father even knows my birthday?" I didn't answer. We both knew he didn't. "He threatened to contest the will," she continued. "I told him to try. My lawyer's meaner than his, and I've got documentation going back 30 years showing exactly where my money's been going and why. Good luck explaining to a judge why he deserves an inheritance after skipping his daughter's wedding for a beach vacation." After we hung up, Eric looked at me seriously. "This is going to get worse before it gets better." He was right. By that evening, my phone, still with my family blocked, started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. The first was from my father's lawyer, professional, cold, requesting I contact them regarding estate matters, and family mediation. The second was from Natalie, clearly calling from a friend's phone. Claire, this is insane. You can't actually think you deserve Grandma's entire estate. That money was supposed to help all of us. Call me back. We need to fix this. Fix this. As if I'd broken something. The third was from my mother, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Your grandmother is 84 years old, Claire. She's clearly being influenced. We're going to get to the bottom of this, and when we do, everyone's going to see what you really are. A manipulative, selfish, ungrateful. I deleted it before she could finish. Eric was watching me carefully. You okay? I searched for the word. Powerful. Is that wrong? No, he said firmly. It's not wrong. They spent your whole life making you feel powerless. Of course this feels good. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about validation. Grandma Rose had seen what I'd experienced, believed it, and taken action. She'd done what my parents never did. She'd chosen me. The next day, I got an email from Riley. Claire, you need to see this. Family group chat is exploding. I'm forwarding screenshots. What followed was a thread of messages that would have been comical if they weren't so revealing. Dad, Rose has lost her mind. We need to talk to her doctor about competency evaluations. Mom, this is what happens when you alienate your child and she runs to the nearest relative for sympathy. Natalie, I can't believe Claire would stoop this low. Grandma always liked her better anyway. Aunt Diane, Thomas, maybe if you'd shown up to Claire's wedding, your mother wouldn't have cut you out. Dad, stay out of this, Diane. This is between me and my mother. Aunt Diane, actually, it's between you and your daughter, and you've made your choice clear.
I'm removing you from this chat. Aunt Diane, I already left. Good luck with your lawyer. You're going to need it. Riley had added a message at the bottom. Aunt Diane is officially my hero. Also, your mom called my mom crying, asking her to talk sense into you. My mom told her to talk sense into herself. The family was fracturing. Not because I was fighting, because they were finally facing consequences they'd never had to face before. That weekend, something unexpected happened. A journalist reached out. She was a writer for a mid-size online publication that focused on family dynamics and generational trauma. She'd seen my original Instagram post and the subsequent fallout. Hi, Claire. I'm working on a piece about adult children who've been systematically deprioritized by their families. Your story has resonated with thousands of people. Would you be willing to speak with me? Anonymously, if you prefer. I stared at the message for a long time. Eric found me on the couch, phone in hand, frozen. What's wrong? Someone wants to interview me. About everything. He sat beside me. Do you want to do it? Part of me does. Part of me thinks it'll just make things worse. It can't get much worse, he pointed out. They've already tried to publicly discredit you, organize their friends against you, and threaten legal action over an inheritance that isn't theirs. What's left? He had a point. I messaged the journalist back. I'll do it, but I want my name used. I'm done hiding. The interview took place over video call 3 days later. The journalist, Amanda Chen, was warm and professional. She asked questions that made me cry, made me angry, made me finally feel heard. When did you first realize your family treated you differently? She asked. I thought back to the photo album, to a lifetime of moments just like it. I think I always knew. I just didn't have the language for it, and I didn't have permission to acknowledge it. What gave you that permission? They did, I said simply, when they missed my wedding, when they chose a vacation over the most important day of my life. They gave me permission to stop pretending. The article published a week later. The headline read, I walked myself down the aisle, one woman's story of choosing herself when her family wouldn't. It went viral within hours. Thousands of comments from people sharing similar stories, people who'd been the scapegoat, the forgotten child, the one who was too sensitive or too dramatic.
People who'd finally walked away and were still being told they were wrong for it. My phone exploded again, but this time with messages of support. Former teachers saying they'd noticed, childhood friends saying they'd always wondered, strangers saying, "Thank you for telling my story too." And buried in all of it, one message from an unknown number. "You've destroyed this family. I hope you're happy." It was from Natalie's phone. She'd gotten a new number just to send that. I showed Eric. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I thought about everything. The wedding, the will, the article, the unraveling of a family that had been held together by my silence. Then I typed back, "I didn't destroy this family. I just stopped rebuilding it alone." I hit send. Then I blocked the number, because I was done explaining myself to people who'd never wanted to understand. The war they'd started was ending. Not with my surrender, with my victory.
6 months after my wedding, I stood in the lobby of a community center in downtown Portland, watching young women file in for the first session of a mentorship program I'd started. It was called Walk Yourself, a support group and skill-building workshop for women who'd been overlooked, undervalued, or erased by their families. We met twice a month. I had funded it partially with a grant, partially with my own savings, and partially with a donation from Grandma Rose, who told me, "Use my money to help girls who need someone in their corner." The program had a waiting list 3 pages long. That day, a young woman named Becca approached me during the break. She was 23, soft-spoken, and her hands shook when she held her coffee cup. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Of course. I read your article, the one about your wedding, and She took a breath. "I uninvited my parents from my graduation next month because they've missed everything else, and I realized I don't want them there just for the photo op." My chest tightened. "How do you feel about that decision?" "Terrified," she admitted, "but also free. Like I finally get to have something that's just mine." I squeezed her shoulder. "That's exactly what it is. Yours." After she walked away, I felt Eric's arms wrap around me from behind. He'd come to pick me up, like he did every session. "You're changing lives," he murmured. "I'm just telling the truth. Turns out a lot of people needed to hear it." The truth was, my life had transformed in ways I never anticipated. After the article went viral, I'd been contacted by 3 publishers interested in a book. I was still deciding if I wanted to write it. The therapy practice I'd started seeing regularly was helping me process decades of pain I'd buried. Eric and I had bought a house, a small craftsman with a garden I was learning to tend, and I'd started painting again, something I hadn't done since high school. My art teacher back then had told me I had talent. My mother had said it was a waste of time. I'd believed her. Now my paintings hung in our hallway, imperfect, colorful, mine. My family had gone quiet after the article. No more lawyers, no more angry messages, no attempts at reconciliation. Just silence. At first, I'd waited for the other shoe to drop, for them to try something else, to find a new angle, to force their way back into my life. But they never did. Riley told me through occasional updates that my parents had become somewhat of pariahs in their social circle. The story had spread locally. People whispered at the grocery store. Their church friends asked uncomfortable questions. Natalie had apparently moved to California, citing needing a fresh start. My father had tried one last time to contest Grandma Rose's will. The judge had dismissed it in under 10 minutes, calling it a waste of the court's time. Grandma Rose had sent me a photo of herself holding the dismissal notice, grinning like she'd won the lottery. One evening in late November, almost a year after my wedding, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, handwritten, postmarked from Seattle. Inside was a single page, the handwriting unmistakably my mother's. "Claire, I've started therapy. My counselor asked me to write this, even if I never send it. But I think you should know. I'm sorry. Not because of the will, not because of what people think,
but because you were right. I spent your entire life comparing you to your sister, and I told myself it was because she needed more support. But the truth is, you never demanded attention, so I assumed you didn't need it. I took your independence as permission to ignore you. Your father won't admit it. Natalie still thinks you overreacted, but I see it now. I see what we did to you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond. I just needed you to know that I know. I failed you. And I'm sorry. Mom. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer, and closed it. Eric found me sitting on the bedroom floor staring at nothing. What happened? My mother apologized. He sat beside me. How do you feel? I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wanted this for so long. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that they knew what they'd done. And now that I have it, I trailed off. It doesn't fix anything.
No, it doesn't. Do you want to respond? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Maybe someday, I said finally. But not now. Right now, I need to keep building the life I've created, the one where I don't need their validation to know I matter. He kissed my forehead. You've always mattered. I know that now. And I did. Finally, truly, I did. 3 weeks later, on what would have been our first anniversary, Eric surprised me with a trip back to the vineyard where we'd gotten married. We stood under the same oak tree, now bare for winter, and he took my hand. A year ago, I watched you walk toward me alone, he said. And I remember thinking I'd never seen anything braver. You didn't need anyone to give you away because you'd already given yourself permission to be free. Tears streamed down my face. I want you to know, he continued, that watching you become this version of yourself, the one who sets boundaries, who builds programs, who tells her story without apology, has been the greatest privilege of my life. I pulled him close. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, he said firmly. That's what makes you extraordinary. You didn't need me to save you. You just needed someone to witness you saving yourself. We stood there as the sun set, wrapped in each other, and I felt something I'd spent 30 years searching for. Wholeness. Not because I'd gotten an apology, not because I'd won some battle, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for other people to make me feel worthy. I was worthy because I existed. I was worthy because I chose myself. I was worthy because I walked away from people who couldn't see my value and toward a life where I didn't need them to. That night, I posted one final message on Instagram. No photo, just words. A year ago, I walked myself down the aisle at my wedding. Some people weren't there, and that broke something open in me. Not something broken, but something that needed breaking. I spent my life shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I spent years earning approval from people who'd already decided I wasn't worth it. And then I stopped. I stopped explaining. I stopped performing. I stopped waiting for permission to take up space. To everyone who's been the overlooked child, the forgotten friend, the convenient option, you don't need their validation. You never did. Walk yourself toward the life you deserve. The people who matter will be there, and the ones who aren't, they were never going to celebrate you anyway. Choose yourself. Every single time. Claire. The post got thousands of responses, but the one that mattered most came from Becca.
the young woman from my mentorship program. I graduated yesterday. Front row, no family, surrounded by friends who chose to be there. I walked myself across that stage. Thank you for showing me how. I smiled, closed my phone, and turned to Eric. Ready to go home? He grinned. Always. And as we drove away from the vineyard, past the rolling hills and into the night, I realized something profound. I'd spent so long trying to be enough for people who would never see me. But I'd always been enough. I just needed to see it myself. And now? Now I finally did.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.